Kanaway.
It's great to be here, Andrew.
Now, I know you first became interested in psychology at high school, which is interesting because we don't tend to associate a subject like psychology being taught at high school. Can you tell us about how that happened?
Yeah, it was one of those topics that got introduced around about sixth form. And one I thought was really interesting one because, as you say, it's not a typical subject that's introduced. You know, you have a whole range of, your maths, your sciences, but psychology was very interesting since it was quite different. I've always been quite interested in understanding people and understanding ourselves. So for me, that was a great opportunity just to dive into that.
What was it about psychology that caught your interest?
There's so many characteristics of ours, little quirks, little personalities that are very different, and we're all unique. Yet at the same time, it's interesting as a human being that actually there's a lot of things that seem to overlap between ourselves. Cultures around the world, in the languages that we speak and interact, there's a common human element to us in terms of we enjoy coming together, sharing food, laughing. Yet at the same time, the way we interact in different perspectives, our upbringing, our journeys in life, it's so different. So I've always been fascinated about, human behavior, interactions, how we get better and better human interactions as well. And for me, psychology and understanding psychology has always been the stem of that, really.
Did you know then that that would become the pathway that you would pursue at university?
Interestingly enough, when I did go to university, I was thinking, okay, that's it. I'll be doing clinical psychology, fully, understanding individuals, potentially counseling. And then I found it quite scientific, and it kind of missed that human behavior element as to why people do certain things. And it was more around about, even like brain trauma and things like that. And I thought, for me, it's actually more applied psychology. So I started looking at more industrial psychology, which is looking at the application of psychology into the workforce and things like marketing, HR. And I found that more interesting because for me, it was much more practical. It's like understanding people, but then taking it to what does that mean in the real world? What does that mean in the workforce? That then became much more interesting. And even though I don't work as an industrial psychologist or a clinical psychologist to this present day, but wanting to understand people and seek to create human connections was something that's always been an interest of me.
And so you come to university, you enroll in a BA, a BCom, as you've mentioned, and you cross paths with Dr. Kolb, who had a big influence in you. How did he influence your career and some of the material that he introduced you to?
Yeah, so Dr. Kolb and the team set up in my honors year a program called Organizational Change and Innovation. For me, I found it very leading edge. So the thinking that Darrell had with that was very much around, how can we create continuous improvement in an organization, and how can we think about innovation, thinking outside the box. So a lot of strategic planning and strategy, but also very much at the practical level as well. And the way that he built the program was very much group activities, interactions. I remember we even had this one night where we actually did almost like a 24, 48-hour class activity where we had to produce a book and came together, wrote chapters, and basically by the end of the 48 hours, we produced this book through the whole class. So it was very interactive and very different way of teaching. And I think the program that Darrell had built with that organization change and innovation just fascinated me. So thoroughly enjoyed, yeah.
And this was the late 90s, wasn't it? So we were just really starting to go down this path around innovation and agile change and thinking. And then you score a graduate role at Air New Zealand, which was highly sought after. And I know you were quite shocked when you actually got the call to say you'd been successful. And of course, Air New Zealand at the time, early 2000s, really trying to get over a number of setbacks and rebuild the airline. That would have been a great opportunity to learn a lot in a short space of time.
Again, going from an innovation program like organization change to working for like Air New Zealand, which they had their challenges. They just went through the government buyout with Ansett, needing to kind of change itself as an organization to be one more commercially viable, but also really build better customer relationships. And I had actually joined industrial relations, which is around contract negotiations with unions, very challenging role, but really at the core of making sure how do we build great relationships with our union. For me, it was a dream kind of job to be able to work for the national carrier. I worked on a whole range of projects from business case to implementing the Adelaide route. And as a new graduate, getting a team of like 35 from engineering to cargo to airports to cabin crew to online sales, PR, and managing such a diverse group of people was brilliant. And that's just, I suppose, a lot of that Kiwi culture that you learn, the true can-do attitude and working with people and getting the best out of people, because I'm certainly not an airport services expert, but I needed to rely on people who were, and how can I bring everybody together to make sure that we got to the end delivery at that point in time. And very thankful for New Zealand for giving me those opportunities to launch those projects at such a very early age in my career. So,
and then you move on to London, but I'd just like to focus a bit on your own business, which you've created, which is called Uniquely Wired. And I think you came up with the whole idea on the underground one day. Tell us about Uniquely Wired and what's unique about what it does.
So Uniquely Wired probably stems a lot from that whole interest in psychology. And I was there, and I was there for 4 years working for a mobile company, so had moved into technology by then. And I had been there. We kind of launched the B2B brand for them. We established clients like Apple, Samsung, RBS. And it was at that point we had a restructure, and I was thinking, do I stay for another couple of years, or do I start something else? And I've always been quite passionate at a younger age to eventually start something of my own, work for myself. And I thought, this seems like a great time. And so I wanted something that was tangible, that could earn revenue really quickly. So I actually started a recruitment business. So it was around the fact that, each individual is unique, and there's a set of skills, experience, qualities that you have that nobody else has. And it's really about making sure you as an individual is placed in the right place to grow and develop. And so I actually ended up getting my old company to be my first client. And then I actually continued to diversify that from recruitment to also then marketing, which is kind of my core background in terms of both that psychology / organizational studies, which was, if every individual is unique, likewise, every company and every organization is unique. And how can I help those organizations, one, either develop their brand identity, but also eventually grow in the market and take them to market? There's a whole myriad of things that makes one organization unique. And it's really about understanding them in that level of depth and then marketing them. And it's really about identity. And how can we be clear on our identity to be able to serve each other's needs a bit better, and it's just about valuing diversity and valuing our uniqueness. So Uniquely Wired came from the name of, I love the fact that we're all wired differently. It actually incorporated very first number 8 wire, being again from New Zealand. And then I actually was then looking, there's another name, and what is it? And it came to me, as you said, on the tube, and it's like Uniquely Wired. I love it. And .com was available, so a very great domain name.
Now, you have a great philosophy on life, finding the right balance for making the biggest positive impact for change with as much enjoyment as possible. That sounds like the perfect combination. How do you maintain that?
Oh, I won't lie to you. It's not an easy one. I'm still kind of, I suppose you can say, I'm still kind of refining it and finding the right balance of it. But it's a concept called Unforced Rhythms of Grace, and it actually comes from scripture. It comes from my faith, and it's really around about finding that balance that does guide us. It's whether you call it your intuition, your instinct, and I think a lot of it's tapping into that. Like if you think about Uniquely Wired, there's something that we're all unique as individuals, and whether you call it things like your purpose, your calling, your gifting, but it's really around understanding inherently who you are as an individual, and really trying to stay true and faithful to that. And being able to do that, my hope, and in the process of kind of going through this philosophy, as you say, will allow us to get into this kind of rhythm where we are beating to our own drum, but it's a drum that is unique. But it is a journey, you know. By all sense, no perfect person, but you know, certainly working on seeing what we can do to make this world a better place.
And finally, Kanaway, what's left on the radar for you coming up in the future?
Because of this philosophy, as you say, Andrew, I really using 2020 to be a real year to just test that out. And it's quite interesting because it's, you know, not just for me, but I think for everybody in the world, 2020 has been a very interesting year. So I'm making some changes and putting some things in place to see whether that's going to be possible or not, to really get into that whole unforced rhythm embrace. The other thing that I've started as a result of COVID and both my faith and my interest in technology, I've done a little side project that I've built more in the midst of lockdown. So it's called Room to Pray. I'm working with actually one of the churches at the moment in New Zealand to just test it out, to see how it would work. I'm building that as, again, one of those things where there's so many opportunities at the moment, especially in the digital space, especially in providing solutions and the new ways that we do things. I really encourage everybody to just look outside there and see there's so many opportunities that we can help other people, organizations that can kind of really bring that together. So that's a little side project that I'm a little bit interested in at the moment, building that out as a service for particularly in the light of COVID and multiple lockdowns yet to come. So that's my little thing at the moment.
That sounds great. Kanaway, thank you so much for being part of our 40 Under 40 series, and all the best for your future.
Thank you, Andrew. It's been a privilege. It's been a privilege to go to Auckland University. I thank both my lecturers and just the mentors that I've had for the years, but I thank University of Auckland for just being a truly world-class university, and thank you again for your time and the chats that we've had. I really enjoyed it and appreciated it.